Mkhwebane has suggested that remedial action be taken against President Cyril Ramaphosa. Mkhwebane has directed the National Assembly to refer the President's violation of the Executive Code of Ethics to a joint committee for consideration. The adverse findings against the President are in response to a complaint filed with the Public Protector's Office by the Democratic Alliance. Let's take a listen first to what the Public Protector had to say earlier today.
The President misled Parliament. He should have not allowed himself to be responding the way he did, and he should have given himself time to respond or to request to be given an opportunity to go and prepare a response to Mr. Mkhwebane. And then the second question relating to the President improperly and in violation of the provisions of the Executive Code and disclosures of members' interests for the National Assembly, expose himself to any situation involving the risk of a conflict. This remedial action is also substantiated. The President exposed himself to the risk of a conflict between his private interest and his official responsibilities. By then, the President was the Deputy President of the country and was expected to disclose any financial benefit which he received. And again, his explanation that he didn't know about the donors and the donations. He attended the dinners, he addressed the donors, and there's evidence also that he was very actively involved in speaking to some of the donors because there's evidence in my position to that aspect. I therefore find that the President's failure to disclose financial interests which accrued to him as a result of the donations received towards the CR 17 to be in violation of paragraph 2 of the Executive Ethics Code and accordingly amounts to a conduct that is inconsistent with his office as a member of Cabinet as contemplated by Section 96 of the Constitution.
Well, let's get a response now from the President's office. The Presidency spokesperson, Kusela Diko, joins me now in studio. Kusela, thank you very much for your time this evening. Damning findings against President Cyril Ramaphosa. But in a statement that you released just a couple of hours ago, you indicate that you're disappointed that the President's response did not seem to make it into the final report.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kusela, and thank you so much for having us on the show. I think perhaps it's important by starting off by reiterating the President's respect for the Office of the Public Protector. He believes that that office plays a crucial role in safeguarding our constitutional democracy, but also holding those who are meant to account. So as we look at this report, it's within that vein that says that indeed the Public Protector must be allowed to conduct her work without fear, without prejudice, without favor. Now, we are indeed, of course, disappointed by the findings, which are very adverse, that she's made against the President. You'll remember that she had served him with a Section 79 notice in which she had laid out her preliminary findings. It's unfortunate that the final report seems almost identical to the Section 79 notice. So when you read it, it reads almost word for word as that notice. Now, what this says to us is that that substantial and very comprehensive response, where the President, in the interest of transparency, of accountability, would have given her responses, they have not been taken into account. But nonetheless, the President has committed himself to study this final report, and then he will then take a decision on the way forward once he has done that.
You've reiterated that sentiment in that press statement as well, saying that you're studying the report, but you have said disappointed and unfortunate. Could there be a possibility of challenging this report? I know you said you're still studying it, but could there be a possibility on the premise of your disappointment and what you're saying is a complete disregard for the response that the President gave to the Public Protector?
See, Kusela, I wouldn't want to preempt what decision the President will take once he's had an opportunity to apply his mind to that report. But I think we must make the point that our Constitution allows for anybody who feels that they have a dispute which can be resolved in law by approaching a court to do so. So the issue of a review is provided for within our legal dispensation, and I think we shouldn't demonize that. It does not indicate a state that is at war with itself. It does not indicate a presidency that has no confidence in the public protector. It simply means that there are issues where we perhaps don't see things the same,
so
and we disagree.
So you wouldn't rule that out at a later stage? I know you're studying the report, but you wouldn't rule it out?
We wouldn't rule it out given the fact that it is provided for in law. So once the President has looked at it and obviously compared it, with the issues that he has raised, and perhaps looked at maybe new issues that she raises in this final report that were not in the Section 79 notice, then it may be that he will take a decision that we take the report on review.
I have to ask, as the Presidency, do you believe that there's a political football at play here? We know what's happening within the political landscape, and I mean, this is just also fresh off a couple of days ago when the President had interdicted the remedial action against the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. Do you believe that there's politics at play here?
You know, Criselda, when we say that we respect the office of the Public Protector, it's not really just words. We mean that in the true letter and spirit of what we say, which means that when the Public Protector makes findings, we wouldn't want to look beyond and say that there's some other political machinations at play. We will take the report as it is presented, we will look at it based on the facts, and then we will obviously seek legal recourse if there's a reason to do so. We would not want a situation where a Public Protector, whether it's Advocate Mkhwebane or anybody else in this country, cannot do their work on the basis that they will be accused of political machinations. So the President will study the report, and if he feels that, having looked at it, there are valid reasons for him to consider that perhaps the Public Protector has not acted in a manner that is rational, that is legal, then indeed he will take it on review.
And there are others who are saying that the Public Protector has not acted legally. There are a lot of calls for, the fitness to hold office of the Public Protector to be probed from various quarters. Given the fact that you're saying that you're disappointed, there was disregard for the President's response in this final report that she gave to the media today. Do you think there'd be sufficient grounds to look into her fitness to hold office?
Well, that is a matter that is before Parliament now, and I think the political parties in Parliament will express themselves on it.
But based on your unhappiness, you're saying you might challenge this report if, after studying, you come to that conclusion, and on the basis that you're saying you're disappointed by this final report that does not have the President's response. On that basis, do you believe that there is sufficient ground then, on your experience?
Criselda, remember the process that Parliament is supposed to undertake will be an inquiry into her fitness to hold office, and therefore all the views that the various political parties in Parliament hold will then be presented within that. It is not for the Presidency to make a determination whether indeed Advocate Mkhwebane is fit for office or not. What we do want to say is that and I think it's to reiterate the point that she must be allowed to do her work. But also we must accept that as South Africans we have accepted what we call a platform of coexistence, which are the rules, the regulation, the legislation, the statute that guides how we function, how the different institutions function. And when those come into play, for example, the inquiry into the fitness to hold office of the Public Protector, then we must allow them to conduct that, because that is how we have said that we will resolve any disputes that arise in society. So we will be watching that process in Parliament quite closely. But the governing party from which the President comes from will obviously make its own input into that particular inquiry, and we will obviously respect any decision that comes from Parliament.
Yeah, look, post this report release, you've had, for example, the opposition, the DA, saying that the President should appear before an ad hoc committee to give evidence. Would the President subject himself to that?
Well, those are matters that come up in the remedial action, which obviously when the President looks at the report, he will then take a determination whether he wants to challenge it, he wants to take it on review. But just to say that, just a cursory reading of that report already raises some red flags, where the Public Protector, for example, is recommending that the President appears before the Joint Ethics Committee. Now, the President is not a member of Parliament, and therefore he is not subject, to the Joint Ethics Committee. But But these are the issues that we'll look at. The president is not going to run away from any accountability in this matter. If he's got an issue to answer for, like he has said in Parliament about other members, then he will definitely present himself. He has cooperated fully with the public protector in this investigation, and he will continue to do so moving forward.
Just finally, Kusela, before we let you go, I mean, is there any element of concern in the president's office about his reputation following these damning findings? I mean, the president came into office with an attitude of a new dawn, a new era. So what does this then do to the reputation of the president? Is there any concern about how the president is viewed in light of these damning allegations against him?
Criselda, let me assure you, the president's resolve to fight corruption and malfeasance is unshaken. He remains determined and committed to ensure that
he becomes
it is ruled out. Of that? He remains determined to ensure that it is rooted out wherever it finds expression. And that is the reason why he is committed to subject himself to this process. He has said that nobody is above the law, including himself. Now, obviously, we would not want a situation where indeed the president is, viewed in a negative light as it relates to these allegations, but he consistently maintains that there is absolutely no reason why anybody would ascribe any wrongdoing to him in this matter. So the reason he's following due process, the reason he's allowing the law to take its course is also to lead by example. I mean, it's not anybody else who discovered that he had made a mistake in Parliament. It was him, after giving a truthful answer, that went back and said, I made a mistake. So that is really the ethos and the principle that drives this president, and he'll continue to carry it through. We don't believe that in any way this distracts him for the very important work that he needs to do to root out corruption in our state.
All right, Kusela Diko, thank you very much for joining us tonight. There was the presidency spokesperson, Kusela Diko, talking to us just hours after the public protector found that President Cyril Ramaphosa had deliberately misled Parliament over the Bosasa donation to his election campaign. Well, let's see what sport has in store for us.